The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
A major injury shakes up the Western Conference.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
The big news, Andy, on Monday is Fred VanVleet, the starting point guard for the Houston Rockets. Very important part of that team. Tore an ACL at a team minicamp going into next week's training camp, and it is not officially that he's out for the season, but he's going to have surgery, and he is presumed to be, if not out for the season, damn near close. And so that is a massive, massive blow to a team that is considered sort of in that group right behind the Thunder of big contenders in the West.
And even with being considered one of the front runners or inner circle teams in the West, if you want to give the Thunder the benefit of the doubt as number one as the defending champs, fine. But the general consensus had Houston in the top 3 in the West. They were considered the offseason winners with the trade for Kevin Durant. Houston seemed ahead of schedule in terms of their younger players and getting into the playoffs last year, pushing Golden State to 7 games. One of the acknowledged weaknesses of this team, and I know it's something I talked about a few times with Houston and assessing the West, one of the questions I had was playmaking, just because this roster is low on a lot of proven designated playmakers. Like Fred VanVleet was not just the best point guard on this roster, as far as point guards with any proven track record to play real minutes and produce, he was the only point guard on this roster.
That's correct.
And and now they are put in a position where they're going to miss his facilitating on a bunch of different levels and that floor general quality. And that's going to have to be replaced somewhere, whether you are talking about guys like Amen Thompson or Alperen Sengun taking next steps in their playmaking ability, which they have both shown abilities to do it, but never as like a full-time part of an offensive flow and like the structure of an offense. Or Reed Sheppard, second-year player, last year was their 3rd overall pick, who, because the Rockets were ahead of schedule, ended up playing less than I think they expected. But between the Dylan Brooks getting traded to Phoenix as part of bringing Kevin Durant, and also even a guy like Cam Whitmore getting moved to the Wizards. Yeah, they had been expecting.
Green is gone. Like, they reshuffled with losing a lot of backcourt players.
They did, and the expectation was that Reed Sheppard was going to have to play, or was going to play more anyway. Have to is what they wanted, but now they really need Reed Sheppard to be readier than they may anticipate for a bigger role, or a lot of this could end up falling on Kevin Durant, who has proven himself to be a good playmaker, but they really brought him in to be the proven scorer, in a lot of ways, safety valve for this offense, which last year got pretty gummy and inefficient, particularly late in shot clocks. And that's where a guy like Kevin Durant is one of the best ever. It's not that Kevin Durant can't make plays for other guys. He can, but the more you put on his plate at that age, the more you risk that attrition catching up to him. But also, it's just not what you set out to do this season.
I don't disagree with any of that. And I think even more, it's like, VanVleet was just one of these guys, and he is not a hyper efficient shooter and like all of those things. He's a flawed player in that sense, but he fits in really well with what they need. He is a just really good, solid point guard in terms, when you need that. but he's also a good off-ball player, not necessarily as a spot-up shooter, but as an effective player inside of an offense. He is a guy who can do that. He is a hugely important voice in their locker room. Which when you have a mix of young players and old players, and your veteran leader is, I guess, your star now is Kevin Durant. It is important to have other voices that, quite frankly,
honestly, DFS
becomes
a really important, I think, part of that locker room now, because that is something Dorian, we saw it with the Lakers just in half a season. He became a prominent voice.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredibly well-respected player, but he's also, when you're I don't know exactly what their rotation is going to look like, but
he's slated to come off the bench, I think.
Right, 6th man, 7th man, 8th man, I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of talent on that roster. It's not the same thing. Your point guard is a huge part of everything that you do. And now, in terms of playmaking, you talk about Kevin Durant. They run a lot of stuff through Alperen Şengün. They are equipped to operate sort of without VanVleet in some ways, in that sense that they have playmakers in unorthodox places. But because, like you mentioned, they don't have a lot of, there's no backup point guard that you can look at and say, well, you know what, that guy can pick up and make this work for, there isn't anybody on the roster who can do that. So you're going to kind of have to cobble things together, let Reed Sheppard learn on the job, give some minutes, I guess, to Aaron Holiday, players like that. And the other thing that makes this, I think, really tricky for Houston, and we'll get into the impact of this in the next segment, but the other thing that makes this really tricky for Houston, and somebody pointed it out in the chat as we're doing the live show on YouTube, they don't have the capacity to replace VanVleet. Not even with just like a street free agent they could sign at the minimum. They're like a little over $1 million under the first apron. So they're very restricted there. And, they can get an injury, what do they do with the injury exception or whatever it is for VanVleet, but they can't use it because they're right up on the apron.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook had come up as an example of a guy they can't sign. Obviously the intrigue of reuniting Russ and KD, plus Russ and Houston, because he did not leave the Rockets on the greatest of terms. All of those.
It's a great move for Locked On Rockets. I'm not sure if it'd be great for the team, but they can't do it because they're right up against the apron. This, by the way, if you're looking for cap things that might change over the course of the next, tweaks they might make to it, that could be one where, if you're a certain amount close to the apron, you can, get some sort of exception that allows you to sign a minimum. Or there may be some sort of adjustment that's made.
Same issue the Lakers have, by the way, with the last spot on their roster that's currently open. They can't use it.
Correct. So and then the other thing is about half of their roster can't be traded until December 15th.
So put away your Gabe Vincent trade machine ideas. And I say this because I went through the trade machine with Gabe Vincent
until Christmas. You can do it. You can take it out again later, but you can. Basically, if their most important players are the only players that they can trade in between now and then. So the Rockets are basically forced now to play with what they've got. At least until mid-December, when they can try to come up with some sort of replacement for VanVleet if they feel that is necessary.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I want to bet in that moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are
Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
When it comes to overall expectations from what this team expects from certain players on this team, what do you think the pressing questions are going into media day on Friday, Keith?
Well, the number one, I mean, I guess the pressing question is, and you said it, like the biggest question is going to be around Joel Embiid. Where is he at? Like, how healthy is he? We're seeing videos of him at the practice, at the workouts, but we don't see any videos of him working out. And as of a week ago, I was told he wasn't working out. So, I mean, he's not working out. He wasn't participating in the scrimmaging, right? So if that's the case, when is he going to be able to? Is there a timeline for him to play in games, right? So to me, though, that's the number one question. The second question is, to me, is Quentin Grimes, right? That's something that's big too. Like, we need to know, like, right now, it's September the 22nd. The team is going to have media day September the 26th on Friday. Is Quentin Grimes going to be available? I mean, if he's not at that particular time, what's the deal with him? I mean, are you going to move on, or are you just going to give him, is he going to take that qualifying offer, or are you still trying to create some space to give him the money that he wants? So to me, that question is even bigger than the Paul George question. You know what I mean? Like, it's Joel Embiid and Quentin Grimes, in my opinion.
I 1,000% agree. Let's go back to number one. Let's go back to Joel Embiid. I think you hit it on the head there. I would use the word plan. What's the plan? Because, again, they're not going to say, hey, Joel Embiid's great. Like, they're not going to set the bar that high. Even if he starts somehow practicing on the first day of camp, not just working out, but actually practicing, getting in the scrimmages, wearing the right jersey and all that stuff that we want to see him in, to actually practice with the team and run with the team. But what's the plan? Because Daryl Morey, I'll give him credit for this. He put himself out there at the draft. When he was asked about Joel Embiid, after they talked about VJ Edgecombe and all that stuff, he put himself out there. Yeah, we expect Joel Embiid to be ready for camp. We expect Joel Embiid to be ready for day one. We expect Joel Embiid to be ready to play. Okay. All right. Is that still the case? At Summer League, he was asked a very similar question. He answered in a very similar way. Are we still on that path to Joel Embiid being ready to go day one of the regular season? Because we haven't been told anything else. The only update that we got when we were expecting an update was Joel Embiid having a video released now a week and a half ago at the Sixers practice facility in Camden. But other than that, there's been no update. So do you think the Sixers can lay out a plan at least for what they're looking at with Joel Embiid? And yes, I do understand that the part of that plan is going to be like, we're going to take it slow. We're going to take it slow. How do you see that plan?
I think they could lay out a plan. Do I think they will? No, right? I mean, but yeah, they could. Like, here we go. Like, Joel Embiid, you say, see, this is what they tend to do. Like, they'll say, Joel Embiid is not practicing. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Well, what that means is typically he's set to return in 2 weeks, more often than not. But they'll just say it that way because if he's not set to return, then it's not regarded as a setback. But yeah, a plan would be great, and I think that's another posing question. Like, okay, well, Kawhi Leonard only played in 30-something games last year. He didn't join the team until January. Are you guys trying to follow that same plan, right? Are you going to follow that plan? And the thing is, when you look at it, it's because, they did that plan and Kawhi didn't even play in the Olympics. So, you say, are you guys willing to sacrifice some early games just to make sure Joel Embiid comes back in the new year 100% or close to 100% as possible,
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great way to put it. When it comes to Grimes versus Paul George, I absolutely agree with you. Like, Paul George, I think we kind of know. I mean, yeah, they'll ask the question. You guys will ask the question on media day about Paul George, what his status is right after Joel Embiid. That line of questioning, I'm sure the gears will shift to then Paul George gear, and everyone will be talking about Paul George. But yeah, like, he's going to be here. They're not going to trade him between now and camp and now and the start of the season, so that's not happening. So what is the plan with Paul George? After he had his knee scoped, is he going to be reevaluated in the coming days, or have you already evaluated him? Have you already heard good news from the doctors about his availability? Is he going to be able to hit the ground running and all that? I think the bigger question, though, is Quentin Grimes, because this has been dragging on now for the entire offseason, and it's held up conversation about starting fives. It's making people ask more questions about whether or not he's going to be in it, whether he's not going to come off the bench, whether or not BJ Edgecombe gets in there, Jared McCain, whoever. Just, is Quentin Grimes going to get paid starters money? And then obviously that's a bigger question, I think, than the Paul George scenario, because we know that it can't be answered with Paul George just yet, but the Grimes situation might get a little bit more light shed on it.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Because see, here's the thing that people don't understand about media days. And, media day is kind of like NFL preseason football, right? Like the Giants, like real rap. Like, I mean, seriously, no,
turn the knife already.
I mean, it's the truth, because so what happens is everybody gets up there and everybody talks about what a great, quarterback like Russell Wilson is going to be, or like you get up there and you say, okay, we signed these new players, and people are going to ask Tyrese Maxey, what did he work on, right? And Tyrese is like, yeah, I worked on this aspect of my game. I gained weight. They're going to ask Adem Bona, how much did he learn from playing in with the Euro Cup, whatever it is, like playing on the international basketball slate, and everything is great. Everyone gained weight, everybody got bigger, everybody got better. But like you said, you really don't know until they actually play the games. Like you said, like Paul George, what did you do? Oh, I did this treatment. I was in the gym. I worked on my strength. I feel great. I feel closer to being the Paul George of 2 seasons ago. Like we're ready to go. Everyone's healthy. Well, we'll find that out. It's like there's 30 teams in the league. All of them feel the same way for the most part, right?
Yeah, it's like all the good vibes. Yeah,
it's all the great vibes. All the great vibes.
Fresh start, new season, day one. Last year, terrible. Trying to lose on purpose at the end of the year, so you get a better pick.
Ready.
Now that better pick's here with it. Exactly. Yeah. It's time to party.
We're ready. We're ready. So now there's only 2 questions. There's only 2 people that you really want to talk about for the most part. I mean, because the other stuff is you'll figure it out. You'll find out for yourself when they actually play.
Mm-hmm. So we're going Embiid. We're going Grimes. We just talked about Paul George versus Grimes. I'm going to go ahead. Grimes that Paul George would be number 3 in the line of questioning there, just in terms of the pressing questions that they might actually give you something on. Number 4, this is talking about the biggest questions. The 4th biggest question, Keith, I'm going to defer to you on this. I have something in mind. I just want to see if we're on the same page. What do you think after Embiid, after Grimes, after Paul George? What do you think's next? What do you think is the biggest pressing question, the 4th biggest pressing question going into this media day on Friday?
I think, in my opinion, and it's close. There's 2 close, but the one that I'm gonna go with is Jared McCain. How is he going to be utilized this year? But if I didn't go with that one, my default one was going to be the backup center position, right? You know what I mean? That was going to be that way. But yeah, I mean, Jared McCain, and I think what that is, that has to do where is he at in his return to play, right? We'll figure that out. But also you say, okay, assuming that you do have Quentin Grimes, right? Right now you have 4 guards, a rotation. You got Quentin, you got VJ Edgecombe, you got Tyrese Maxey, you have Jared McCain. My question is, hey, how do you plan on utilizing Jared McCain this year? Like, what is the role that you see for him? We all know that things are going to find a way of figuring his own self out. But at the same time, how do you head into training camp? How do you plan on utilizing him? And then on top of that, I know that he's been out several months, but there's going to be some rust. Do you plan on bringing him along slowly? What is the plan for him, in regards to return to play, and in addition, a role on this team?
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
We're a week out from Media Day, and as the season draws near, what this team is going to look like is anything but certain.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast.
When you ask, what's a thing that's uncertain about this team? It's Brandon Ingram, of course. And look, when you have a team that hasn't played any games together, whose best offensive player has yet to suit up for the team after being traded for, 8 months ago now, it invites a whole lot of uncertainty into your mix going into the season. And the health thing, I suppose, with Ingram, we'll get into the on-court uncertainties as well, but the health thing is, number one, he's not a guy who's been particularly healthy throughout his NBA career. 18 games played last season. Would he have played more had he been playing for teams that were trying in the Pelicans and later the Raptors? Maybe. I don't know. He was still in pain by the end of last season. Would he have played through that pain if he was playing for a team that was trying? Maybe, probably. I don't know. But 18 games is 18 games. The year before that, 64. Year before that, 45. Before that, 55, 61, 62, 52, 59. You got to go back to his rookie season in 2016-17 to find a season where Brandon Ingram played 70-plus games. He played 79 as a rookie. Since then, it has been very hit and miss health-wise. And look, it's a fair concern. The Raptors just paid him a lot of money, and they are depending on him to play a healthy slate of games this year in order to help them figure out some of the stuff that they've just been not so good at, particularly half-court offense over the last handful of years. And again, it's a cop-out to talk about health, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that Alex McKechnie can work his magic as he did with Kawhi Leonard back in the day. I'm hopeful they can make it all work, but Ingram being on the floor, pretty essential to this team doing what it's going to want to do. And we don't yet have an idea of what that's all going to look like. I'm curious to hear on Media Day a week from now, sort of what the plans are with him. Are they going to limit his minutes in game? Are they going to keep him in that sort of 30-minute range as opposed to the 33, 34, 35 you might expect from a star? Are they going to try to rest him on back-to-backs, really load manage him in the early part of the season, keep him fresh for the season, for the later part of the season? Who's to say? Every player is different. Every player reacts to different treatment plans and management plans differently. They'll have a better idea than anyone outside of the team as sort of what the best course of action going forward is to help keep Ingram healthy. But it's a genuine, very real concern. And whether he's healthy or not is very much up in the air as it stands right now. Though I'm hopeful that, again, you get out of the New Orleans situation, you have Alex McKechnie on hand, you have a more motivated Brandon Ingram probably, to just be out there and actually maybe fight through some stuff and play through some stuff than he was for a Pelicans team that was going nowhere fast. Maybe that all plays into him playing a healthy number of games. If he can play 60 games this year, you're laughing. And you may say only 60 games. That's not that many. Stars don't play full slates of games anymore. It just doesn't happen. The guys who play 75-plus games are the exception, not the rule at this point. If you can get 60 out of Ingram, I think you're thrilled. I think you'll help a lot. And then that leads to the sort of other uncertainty, which is, what does Ingram look like on the basketball team? What does the on-court fit look like? It's a thing we've not yet gotten to see yet, of course. We saw, we were hopeful, I guess, that we might see it at the back part of last season. I was thinking, hey, maybe you get 5-10 games with Ingram in there, with Barnes, with Quickly, with Barrett, with Pirtle, see how it all works. We didn't get that, of course, as the team was just trying to piss away the season as successfully as it could to try to optimize its lottery standing and all of that. We know how that all worked out. I think it's an open question still. We've been talking about the theoretical fit of this guy with the team for months now. I cannot wait until it's actual on-court basketball we're watching and evaluating, as opposed just to kind of, the sort of speculation we've done since the trade went down. But look, I think it's going to take, we've talked about this a lot, it's going to take adaptation from Brandon Ingram. It's also going to take adaptation from other guys in the team and from the Raptors coaching staff too, I think. how much is he going to adapt his game to the way the Raptors want to play? And inversely to that, like, how much should the Raptors cede control of the offense to him and change the way they play to sort of optimize the things he does well, which traditionally is a lot of stuff that like doesn't really fall into the Raptors system offense, right? Where it's really about the system as the shot creation engine, where everyone is working as sort of one combined whole. You have, the dribble handoff over here, a cut over here, a movement in this, an advantage here layered onto this advantage here, a cut wherever, right? Like it all is sort of this sort of ecosystem that works in harmony. And look, the process has been good. This is another one of these sort of micro uncertainties, right? Is can they turn good process into actual results? They've not done this so far under 2 years of Darko Rajakovic's offense, where, they play a fun looking style. They move the ball a ton. A lot of it is maybe just getting cardio in, all the player movement that they do. I do wonder if there is, some balance that Brandon Ingram brings to the table. Will the team be all right to cede some of that control, to sort of pass up some of the system, to just kind of let Brandon Ingram go to work? I think it might be necessary to really get the most out of him and to start to, have better results for this offense. I think there's balance to be found there. It's not like this is a team that Ingram's coming to that has like this grand history of offensive success with the way they've played to this point. I think they can play a very similar style with Ingram on the floor, with a healthy Emmanuel quickly, and probably expect better results overall. But this is a team that, despite having a good shot profile, number 2 in the league in shots at the rim last season per clean the glass. That's great. Those are the most valuable shots in the game. They got there. That was awesome. But it just did not translate at all into anything productive offensively. They were the 25th ranked offensive team last year. They shot 29th at the rim in terms of accuracy after being number 2 in overall rim frequency. That's not great. They shot very poorly from 3-point range, 23rd in the league in 3-point percentage, 29th in overall 3-point rate as well. I think Ingram can help with that. I think even if he's not bombing 7 threes a game, I do think his accuracy is very real. He's a good 3-point shooter off the pull, on the catch. And if he's taking 4 or 5 a game, that helps. Obviously, quickly playing a full season helps with the volume stuff as well, and probably the accuracy as well. There's a reason why they were terrible above the break, and it's mostly because their best above the break shooter only played 33 games last season and had a, sort of limited minutes load during those games. Some other stuff here where I just think again, all this stuff points to they have good process on offense, but can they actually start to pull the results? I think Ingram can help in those regards, right? They were a bad rim finishing team. Ingram's a guy who's finished over 70% at the rim the last 2 seasons, has always been kind of high 60s, low 70s from the rim. That's great. Can they get him to the rim enough? Who's to say? We'll have to see. I'm hopeful that in lineups where he has space around him, certain looks, there's an opportunity for him to get there. Can Scotty Barnes get to the rim more often than he did last year, right? I believe he had a career low rim frequency. He's always been a pretty good finisher at the rim, but can he get there more often in more of a play finishing role where maybe he's working as a roll man more often? Maybe he's working off cuts. Maybe he's someone who is attacking closeouts after after the defense has been compromised on one side of the floor, swing it to the other side, and then Scotty Barnes can go to work from there. These are all ways to get him to the rim more often where he's a good finisher. Again, I think there is a solid rim finishing team in here. The issue with this team in recent years has been they get the right shots and they just can't hit them. I also think, again, kind of going away from the system a little bit, can they be more of a team that leans on the mid-range with Brandon Ingram? Lean into what he does well. He's a damn good mid-range shooter. He can get to that shot whenever he wants. Is this a team that'll go from where they were 19th last year in mid-range frequency? Maybe they are a team that's 11th, 12th, because they've asked Brandon Ingram to kind of take those less desirable shots if you're just kind of plotting out a shot chart, but he's taking them because he's good at them and he's going to knock them down and uptake that effective field goal percentage overall. There's I think a balance to be found here between the sort of classic Brandon Ingram style and the egalitarian offense the Raptors want to play. I think Ingram can also benefit from playing within that style, right? I think he can benefit from being someone who can come off screens as like a movement shooter type, get ahead of steam going downhill, someone who just with extra catch and shoot load is going to score a lot just as a 3-point shooter, an above the break guy, a corner shooter, all that stuff. I think he can stand to benefit big time from the system the Raptors run and vice versa if they can kind of meet in the middle a little bit on the things each kind of brings to the table and does well. But yeah, it's a major question. And I'm curious what happens in crunch time situations. Does the system get abandoned for Brandon Ingram just to kind of go to work? Is that just the more simple, easy way to play basketball in those situations? I'm not against it. This is what the Raptors did for years. They were like a killer crunch time team for like a decade with DeMar DeRozan on the team, because in late in games, they just said, you know what? We're not really going to mess around with that whole passing thing where we turn the ball over and, introduce uncertainty into possessions. We're just going to give it to the guy we know can score and let him ride. And maybe that's how they operate late in games. Again, they got to find balance. How they find that, will they find that? All very uncertain, but I think that's the kind of blueprint here. That's what you're looking at, is what you hope to come out as the outcome here with the Brandon Ingram experience in Toronto.